think that it's clear to anyone who's ever seen his work that Idris Elba sees all, everywhere in the 9 realms, whether or not he's playing Heimdall. Accurate. Have you looked into those eyes?
Yes, I have.
Calculating eyes. They do.
It's like the void. You gaze into the void, and the void gazes back.
But there is so much in that void. Hey, everybody, in the TBD podcast universe, you're back again with the 2 big dudes, and today we are talking about the incomparable Idris Elba. I actually don't know who to compare him to. He has a very unique body of work. And actually, I think a very unique style. So incomparable is, I think, the most applicable adjective. And I do mean it both enigmatically and very positively. I should also just state for the record, going into this, that I'm delirious as hell. So if I don't make sense in this podcast, I'm sorry. That's it.
I was relying on you this week, and you like one of them old replacement knees from the 70s. You work, but you might clink every now and then or something.
And there's a chance that it'll just separate for no apparent reason, and you don't have a hip. Yeah, no, it's accurate. It's accurate. I am an artificial hip of a man today.
So you were the one that was specifically pushing Idris Elba, and I have no problem with Idris Elba. I think he's a wonderful actor. But what was your motivation saying that he should be our next target for TBD?
I was really intrigued with the things that I'd seen him in, and my experience of the man was somewhat limited, and I wanted to expand that. And this podcast is always a way for me to expand that on people who I'm interested in, but haven't deeply explored their, I want to say catalog, but it's the wrong term, their filmography. But especially looking at the nuance of his work on specifically the show Luther, it absolutely blew me away. And I wanted to see where he fell on the acting spectrum. And in what we've discussed before in terms of are you a chameleonic, transformative actor, or do you play yourself? Because the performance is so precise, but so idiosyncratic in Luther, that I was like, I need to know more. And looking at his entire filmography, I was actually really intrigued by the fact that the whole first half of his career is television. That's his background. And I unfortunately was not able to watch a whole bunch of that because a whole bunch of it is British television that isn't easy to fucking find. But he just is someone who's always intrigued me, and I always wanted to dig deeper into his career and the rest of that. So that's the general reason. Plus, I'd like to be prepped on him if he does actually get picked as the next James Bond, which
I'm a lot more comfortable with that now.
Yeah! He'd be fucking great, right? My Lord.
That would definitely be a 180 in terms of James Bonds, but I definitely think that he could pull it off. Which is funny because I was watching the Gunman earlier today.
Gunman, I don't know.
It's a Sean Penn movie, and I was in a kind of awkward state because I'd been drinking heavily the night before. I woke up early to scram in another film. And, in my mind, I had the names of Sean Bean and Sean Penn flipped.
Oh,
and
God.
I just started having flashbacks from GoldenEye. And I was like, all right, cool.
That would have been interesting. Oh, God, if they did a remake of GoldenEye with Idris Elba versus Sean Penn instead of Pierce Brosnan versus Sean Bean. I would watch that. That'd be hysterical. I just love watching fucking Idris Elba beat up Sean Penn.
That's really what I wanted to happen in The Gunman. I was like, please let Idris Elba kill Sean Penn. Please let Idris Elba kill Sean. It didn't happen, unfortunately.
God damn it.
I'm sorry for the Gunman spoilers out there if anybody really cares about that 2015 action flick about
Gunman.
Sniper Squad in the Congo and
God.
Aftermath of Sniper Squad being taken out because major criminal activity and needing to wipe the records clean because corporate needs to make that profit and needs to look good making that profit.
See, this actually I'd definitely like to see. I take it Idris Elba's the villain.
No, he's kind of the shadow hand. Unfortunately, he doesn't play as much of a role as I would like. And as much of a role as he's billed as playing. He's the Interpol operative. Okay. And he ends up... He's counter to the main character, because the main character is the proverbial gunman.
Yeah.
While he's counter to Sean Penn's character, he's also the catalyst for effecting as much of a positive final outcome, solution, resolution as there can be. Okay. So, there's definite shades of gray with his character. And I do love him. Like, every time he shows up, like, there's intrigue and mystique and everything. And he just fucks with Sean Penn, and it's excellent.
See, that's always great.
And I think they did seed him early on in, like, a tavern. I'd have to go back and watch it. But honestly, like, I didn't love the film, so I don't know if I'm going to do that. But, like, there are interesting aspects of it, I will say.
Word. And I think that Elba always has done a wonderful job, even as, like, weird side backup characters. Like, one of the things I rewatched for this was Prometheus. And he is my favorite part of that fucking movie, because he's the only person who isn't horrifically incompetent mm-hmm. or, like, utterly cowed. Mm-hmm. Like, he goes, no, fuck yourself. I do know what I'm doing, and you can blow me. Like, the entire movie. And I loved his character, and he doesn't get enough in that movie, unfortunately. And I think that ends up happening where he is this kind of supporting role in a lot of stuff. But I always love it because he's always these just, like, really solid nuggets, you know? And I don't think we need to go into Prometheus because...
No, I think enough people know of the film, and, I mean, that whole fucking, like, run any other direction for the fucking ending.
Anything. Anything. Oh, my God.
Pick a direction other than the one you're going, and take it.
Well, nobody makes fucking good decisions in that movie except for Idris fucking Elba. He's the only fucking
That was your opening point.
He's the only competent one. And he dies!
I mean, that's kind of what happens in Prometheus. Humans fuck up and they die.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that is literally the plot line of the film. And I actually enjoyed Prometheus in a lot of ways, but it was one of those films that periodically I just want to flip over a small piece of furniture near me to express my displeasure with the shoddy plotting. Like, you fucking idiots. You fucking clown asses.
Just straight pull the, Idris Elba in the first episode of Luther where he just flips
just flips it. God, did you watch through Luther?
I did not.
Oh, God.
As I kind of stated to you earlier, like, my prep was not at the standard I generally hold. And that's not because of my lack of respect for you or the podcast or for Idris Elba's body of work.
Well, no.
I just was out of it for whatever reason, A, and B, like, I literally went through, like, his filmography and I was like, well, the things that I'm interested in, I've seen.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I definitely, like, I was forced to, like, stretch and grow for that, and, like, I certainly enjoyed that, and, you know, I may end up going back to and watching more of or finishing Luther, because I think it's really well done.
Yeah.
It's not a type of show that I generally enjoy watching, but I think it's, like, the cream of that type of show. Like, if you enjoy Numbers or fucking CSI or any of that shit.
The classic, it is such a beautiful example of the classic detective show and a modern subversion of it at the same time.
Right.
And I definitely think so. Then you watched, like, the first episode.
I just watched the first episode.
Oh God, the whole thing at the beginning where he's just screaming at him and stomping on the railing where the guy's dangling like a bitch. Oh my God, he just does that role. It's the rhythm changes that make it so good because he's Quicksilver. He's just he's mercurial as shit, and it'll be like moving. He has this like slow, like loping looseness to him that'll suddenly accelerate into these like tight, like staccato, like rapid fire. What's the term? For when music speeds up.
I'm not a musician, Patrick.
God damn it. Why aren't you, Etienne? I thought you mastered the bass oboe.
I know. I failed you and I failed myself. I should have stuck with clarinet from 3rd grade on.
See, again, I see you far more as the bass oboe, or like, the like contrabass oboe. Least appreciated of the Woodland family.
Thank you. I'm glad that you see me as the least appreciated.
Hey, I think it's a glorious instrument that doesn't get enough love. Regardless. But yeah, he just has those tempo changes, and it was such a powerful choice. And he does a lot of beautiful play later on with the way that Luther switches from being in control to being completely off the handle, because he's on a hair trigger. And again, don't watch season 2. You'll just be unhappy.
Okay.
You'll just
There's
be
like
unhappy.
4 seasons, right?
I don't know.
Okay, you just stop after season 1.
I got 3 episodes into season 2, and I got to the one that is about the D&D murderer who wanders around. It is written by a bunch of people who have never played a role-playing game, either tabletop or electronic, in their fucking lives, trying to reference both media, and utterly failing. So basically the concept of the episode is that this guy is wandering around London with a notebook full of homemade encounter tables and is rolling dice whenever he gets into a situation to determine how he interacts with the situation. Because he's a die-hard role player. So of course a die-hard role player determines all of his actions on an encounter table. Beyond the fact that the scene where he pulled out a D8 to roll on an encounter table, that was the scene where I turned it off. He pulled out the book and has like a giant encounter table in the book and rolled a D8, and I went, you didn't even look up the dice. And I left. Like, I was done. At that point with the show, it had already gone so far off the rails. I gave them 2 full fucking episodes of fucking Spring-Heeled Jack, the serial killer, who has magic powers because he knows London. So I can magically appear in the back of your car like a Penny Dreadful character. I'm not even fucking kidding you. Season 2 made me so fucking angry. So I would recommend not watching it. It's up to you.
Okay.
If you want to go for it. I just, like, after how tight and painful season 1 is, like, season 1 hurts. You get to the end and it's just taking a 9-iron to the nethers, and you're like, oh God, why? And it ends on this glorious cliffhanger, and honestly, it didn't need to be continued. Like, the cliffhanger works as an ending. Like, literally the last line is, where the fuck do we go from here?
Hey.
I know that's knocking on heaven's door, but it seems so appropriate. It's funny because that's the only example I've ever seen of him being that out of control as a character. The closest that I saw in watching up to this was his role as the Commandant in Beasts of No Nation, which I don't know if you watched in your prep. That's a hell of a film. Not something to watch if you are not prepared for a heavy, very realistic depiction of child soldiers. Because that's what it is. It's Idris Elba turning the main character into a child soldier and repeatedly butt raping him. It's a rough film. Like 40 minutes in, they had the implication that he was taking the other child soldier into his hut, and I was like, no, you're not, no.
Yeah, again, my previous statement of going through his filmography, and I was like, yep, I've pretty much seen what I want to see from this, and not that the other stuff isn't good, but I believe that's something that needs to be shown and needs to be taken to a greater audience. But, it's something that I'm aware enough of, and I don't need to see those images.
To viscerally, yeah.
Definitely a lot tamer than that. But I watched Mendel, The Long Walk to Freedom.
Oh, God, that was next on my list, and I didn't end up having time.
And I was just the actual levels of hate and false senses of superiority in this. How could anybody hate that much? And, that's really what struck me. The other thing, too, is, how much more... This may seem like a generalization, and that may be a false generalization based on my personal experiences. but how much more humanized heroes of African American descent are in cinema.
Yes.
There's a lot more of their flaws shown, and I like that. Just knowing that in general you can look up to these characters or these people for what they've done, but there's warts there too. Well, and you can respect what they did, but you don't have to respect the man.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's a really important thing, especially if you're covering historical figures. Mm-hmm. I really don't like rosy biopics. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually glad that it looks like this is a sideline, but the Einstein biopic that's about to come out, it looks like they're showing Einstein with warts and all, which is really important.
Nice.
Because he's like this idealized person who was a miserable schmuck of a human being. Like, he was horribly abusive to all of his wives. He fucked every female member of his family. There's definite like potential rape in a bunch of instances with him. He was a terrible fucking person, and it looks like they're actually going to do that straight. And I do like that, and I think that it's I can't. That's something that I would have to look at specifically because it's not something that I've noticed particularly. But I think that actually is it. Like, I would imagine that's very likely true, in part probably because of the fact that there's a cultural assumption of this sounds really bad. There's the cultural assumption of more flaws in minority characters. And so you have these like I mean, literally the terminology that's used to describe it, like doubles down on the cultural circle around it. The lily white heroes,
right?
Who like maybe they're like superficially tough or like I get into bar fights, but I have a heart of gold and like like the whole thing. You don't have real elements to these characters because you don't have these crazy bigger than life people who do crazy bigger than life things without there being a flip side,
right?
And so I think that it is probably an outgrowth of something that's really nasty culturally and it, like that I dislike, but that it does allow then, I think, more textured characters and more likable characters in them. In Beasts of No Nation, despite everything, the Commandant is not entirely unsympathetic. You understand where he is coming from as well. And I think that with good filmmaking, there's a lot of power there. Sorry, that was my pontification on that one. And that's, I don't know, like, Elba does such a good job of flawed heroes and of villains. Like the work he did in Star Trek Beyond as the bad guy in Star Trek Beyond. You don't get as much of him as I would have liked.
Right.
But having that character who is both like full on like cartoon super evil and also someone who you go, oh,
yeah,
dude, I'm so sorry. But like the end of the movie, looking at the cartoon supervillain, you're sorry for him because of the shit he's gone through. And Elba's great at portraying that, like, either softness over steel or steel over softness in his portrayals. Great example being Pacific Rim, which I actually watched for this.
Okay, I didn't know that you hadn't seen it, because I know that it made its big wave.
It's big wave.
Well, like, there was, like, the massive box office release for it, and, like, I know a lot of people in our friend group saw it multiple times in theaters, stuff like that. I have problems with it.
Me too.
I think that it's a fun movie in a bunch of ways, and I like the elements of bringing more of the kaiju and the massive mech stuff to the West, because those are two things that I truly enjoy.
But yeah,
I didn't really want to rewatch Irradiated Cancer General for this.
I mean, I really enjoyed his part of it. He was my favorite part of the film.
I'm not saying...
because the kaiju fights were great in some ways, and also were the most frustrating fucking things in the world. Because this is this spectacularly detailed $100 million, $200 million film where they couldn't actually figure out decent fight choreography enough. It was like a series of images that not Benicio del Toro, I'm sorry, Guillermo del Toro had in his heads. Never mind. I'm not even going to go into that mental sideline I just went into. I always...
If they combine together to form Mecha Shiva.
Mecha del Toro. Well, no, for Benicio del Toro, I just always flash back to his, like, first film role, which is as the, like, evil sidekick henchman in my favorite Bond film, was his License to Kill, when he's, like, 7 fucking teen. Like, he's a fucking baby, and he's just great. He's just the most horrible person. He terrible. Tortures all these people to death. Great character. But whenever I think of him in my mind, I flash back to him going, "We gave her a nice honeymoon," from that movie. But Guillermo del Toro, like, I think he had a bunch of pictures in his head of these really cool images. Like, I want a Jaeger rolling down the street with a super tanker and beating up a kaiju with a super tanker. Even though that's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever thought of in my life, when you have not one, but 2 swords, and not one, but 2 plasma cannons.
Yeah.
Fire plasma cannons at it as you approach. Then, once you get into grappling range, extend your swords. Oh my god.
Yeah.
All of the losses that you suffered in this film could have been avoided. Oh
made
my
no sense.
Fucking god!
It made no sense. It was like the exact opposite of everything you'd want to do.
Seriously, and like at least like the cancer general has like good strategy, even if they don't explain how getting back into a Jaeger now that they have radiation shielding will kill him. They could have done so many other things. They could have said it was a neurological issue from the earliest generation of the drift, like, and that he's, like, suffering that. So if he ever hooks into a drift again, it's going to overload his nerves and he'll never recover and he'll be a vegetable. Like, how much better would that have been? Because then he has that thing where I don't want to die as a fucking vegetable. Like, I'm going to set off this goddamn, like, I'm going to set off this nuke and kill these kaiju. Like, that would have been more powerful. That would have made more fucking sense. And there's so many things like that in that movie where I was like, why'd you do that like that? Mm-hmm. Just why'd you do that like that? Mm-hmm. The three-armed Jaeger, which it was like, oh, 3-arm style, nice. And I was like, that better not be a Jaeger with 3 arms. And it was a Jaeger with 3 arms, and they didn't even do it right. At first, I thought it was full-on Justice from Afro Samurai. Like, he just had, like, an extra long arm that stuck up over his back and he could, like, strike from above with. And I'm like, that's cool. That's fucking cool. But then there's just 2 arms attached to one side. And then when he gets grappled, well, he has the 2 blades and is wrecking the kaiju, he gets grappled. And there is an 8-second shot, I counted, of them kind of, like, impotently, like, grappling with each other, while his 3rd arm with the blade is in clear striking distance of the thing's face while they are grappled. And he does nothing. It's insanity. The armor only breaks when it's plot relevant. The kaiju have the ability to instantly rip off a Jaeger's arm when it becomes plot relevant. And the rest of the time can just can't do anything to the Jaeger. The Jaegers are... I was like, what? Sorry. A lot of problems with this movie, and Idris Elba in it was, like, truly the saving grace. Also the fact that there's, like, a bunch of actors from Westworld in it, which I enjoyed.
That's interesting. I might have to go back and rewatch it since with that.
Lawrence is the guy who runs the control room.
Uh-huh.
Charlie Hunnam's brother, who gets killed at the beginning, is the head of the guards.
Okay.
I also watched Thor for this, so I like had all these like Westworld.
Seen Thor either?
I'd seen Thor, but I wanted to rewatch it because I watched it once and I was like, this movie is trash. And
I mean, yeah, it's a large setup for other things in the MCU. Yeah, that's really what the first movie is.
Well, which was like it just there's so many things in it where I was like, what? Wait, what? And I watched it for Idris Elba, and of course Idris Elba gets like a great, like he's a badass in it. Mm-hmm. But
no, I fucking love him.
You get like
excellent.
I just want more. I want Heimdall the movie. Like, that's what I wanted. Watching Thor was I was like, can we just Can we just have a movie about Heimdall wrecking people trying to invade Asgard? Like, I'll watch that. I'll go to the theaters for that fucking one. Like, I'll pay.
The watcher is done watching. It's time to act.
I came here to watch and kick ass, and I'm all out of watches. Wait. And the humor is so awkward in it. Like, moments where there really doesn't need to be comedic relief, and also just little things like Sif of the golden hair has dark brown hair. Literally the mythical character. It's the whole point. What? Okay. Like, that's like having like somebody called like Craiga Blue or Craiga Pink Eyes have blue eyes, not pink eyes. You got pink. What?
Don't you see? It's a joke.
It's a bad one.
It's like Little John.
Or my personal favorite. I grew up with a kid named Jose in my neighborhood growing up, and Jose, as of age 15, when he graduated middle school, was
doing well there, buddy.
Yeah, he wasn't the smartest. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He also was randomly vicious. He was an interesting guy. We did not stay friends, as I did with some of the people from that neighborhood. But at age 15, he was 6'2" and like 450 odd pounds. And a bunch of that was fat, but a bunch of that was muscle. He was just huge. The guy was the size of like that bookshelf. Like the guy was ridiculous. And only got bigger with time. Like, I saw him later on when he was an adult, and the guy was like easily 6'8", 6'9". And had not slimmed. He had just continued to scale up in size. But his nickname was Tiny. Mm-hmm. It's that classic flashback. But no, what I enjoyed about his character, particularly in Pacific Rim, because it was basically just him and Ron Perlman, and I hated Ron Perlman's character until he died. That's what I loved. I loved the way they killed him, because it was the perfect ending to this character that they set up as just such a sack of shit. And the way he goes down, I was like, beautiful. That's my other favorite part of this film.
Yeah, that's something, too, that I like. I really like Ron Perlman, and I like Charlie Day because I love Always Sunny. Yeah. And, like, having them as two characters in that film, two characters that interacted, and two characters that I disliked, I was just like, fuck!
Oh, my God. There's no reason for them to... The comic relief thing. It's another one of those, like, why did you put comic relief here? This didn't need it. Why is there the silly, like, silly scientists always arguing? You don't understand each other. And I was like, that is... I hate you. I hate you so much.
Well, I think part of the problem with that film, too, is, like, again, Guillermo del Toro trying to take predominantly Asian things in the form of kaiju and mechs, and with the other background that there is with anime and stuff, and applying anime tropes to the film, and the annoyingness and awkwardness of certain anime tropes, and the transition to an actual film, live action film substance.
That actually totally explains it. They were fucking anime characters. I didn't think of it that way, and I really should have. That
and
totally
that's also like
the weird stylistic
the
shit.
Images of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
Directly from that.
Shit, yeah, it was straight out of manga. Mm-hmm. There were still images that he
straight
had
out
in
of
his
manga.
Head. Straight out of Mogwai. But no, okay, thank you. Actually, that makes the whole movie a hell of a lot more digestible for me, like swallowable. Mm-hmm. So thank you.
Yeah, it makes it more understandable, but I don't think it makes it more likable.
For sure.
And I don't have a huge problem with the film. There's lots of things that I dislike in it. There's lots of things that I think should have been done better. But if you go into the film and don't overthink it and enjoy it for what it is, there's a lot to enjoy there.
Yeah. Like, none of the government decisions make sense either. Again,
yeah.
Like, you have to go into it and just completely be like, I will fully suspend disbelief because none of this is believable. Not one fucking part of this is believable, but cool. Like, yeah, my ultimate move. Yeah, and missiles explode out of his chest. And I was like, they literally did the ultimate move. Yeah, in the cockpit to fire the missiles. That's how you fire. I thought that was great. But what was interesting about that for me was that Elba's role in that was like this weird middle ground between the like super charismatic, like pure, like that psychopath charm, that smooth, always an answer, always in control, always like engaging with you and manipulating thing that he does so perfectly in Beasts of No Nation, because he just flawlessly pulls that off for the entire fucking film. And the no-nonsense boss that he played on The Office, which I watched through most of his brief run on The Office as well during my prep thing, which I want to talk about later. Okay. But in that, he is like pure straight man. And in the other one, you have this other one where he's also in this position of power, but is this like smooth, manipulative, like psychopath. And I thought that he hit this beautiful middle note in Pacific Rim between those two things. Like, he is playing deeper games. He is manipulating all of these people around him. He knows how to play that whole end of it. But also is the, like, hard line, like, man of principle, you know, man of Tai Chi, the whole nine. Like, which is why I love the moment where Charlie Hunnam, Charlie the human, grabs his arm, and he's like, all right, first, never touch me again. Second, never touch me again. Okay? And then walks away, and that's it. It was just like, that's, ooh, like the way he says it, because like he finishes it up, like he says those two, and Charlie Hunnam's like, but, and he's like, you don't know who I am. You don't know where I've been. You don't know what I've been through to get here. Like, and I'm not about to fucking tell you my life story. So, like, what I need from you is for you to shut the fuck up and do what I tell you. Okay? Okay. And walks out. And I was like, that, like, I loved the middle point that he hit there. And that was really the point where I realized, like, like, he really is, he is a chameleon actor. And he can hit so many different notes. And that was part of what was funny about seeing him on The Office. Because I don't know if you've seen that run.
I've seen like maybe 2 or 3 episodes of The Office. I have not seen any of the like special guest runs of The Office, even though there's a couple different people that are in the guest runs that I really enjoy. Like, I don't have a problem with The Office, but for whatever reason I didn't get into it. Yeah.
It's not quite my thing, because it's a whole lot of people being very incompetent in arena where people are rewarded for incompetence in the real world. So it's kind of the same problem that I have of watching Silicon Valley, where I'm like, this is well crafted, and I hate the thing that this is about.
No, I know.
And so that's kind of been why I've never gotten into The Office. I've watched, like, similarly a couple of scattered episodes. But that's actually what was the best thing about his run, and having not really been into The Office because of those reasons, is that corporate finally gets fed up with this office being horrifically incompetent, and so they send in Idris Elba. And he is just...
He'll fix it.
Yes, he is a hardline corporate manager. He is pure straight man. And I was expecting, like, it's The Office.
Right.
Like, there's going to be some wackiness. There's going to be... No. He is the flawless straight man for everyone else in the piece to play off of. So everyone else is insane, and he is the only one who's like, what are you doing? Oh... Talking about the thing, you're at work, and just stares. Like, there's all of these scenes of just Idris Elba staring at people until they're like, I will return to my job. And they go and sit at their desks. It's fucking great. Like, and he's doing an American accent in it, which I really enjoyed, because very few British actors can do a fucking American accent right. And I know the same is true in reverse. But it's like Hugh Laurie... And Idris Elba? I can't think of anybody else.
Than that, but yeah, there's either they can do it And, like, sometimes you don't even know because you don't know immediately that they're British actors. You're just like, oh, this guy's, like, really good. Whatever. And you don't think about it in terms of nationality or where they were born or where they grew up or whatever. But, yeah, that's something I definitely noticed. Like, I mean, we talked about it when we were doing Michael Caine way back when. Where Michael Caine, he's got that accent.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. And
I mean, probably the most famous, not directly British, but Sean Connery.
Yeah. Oh, you're playing an American Sean. Sure. All right. We'll pretend. We'll pretend for you.
Why are you slurring your blood drunk? I'm not drunk. I'm Scottish.
I mean, porque no los dos? And just the Untouchables is my favorite example of him trying to do an American accent and just miserably fucking it up. Just like a fucking wop brings a knife to a gunfight. Like, he does the full fucking thing. But that's the one that always gets to me is Clive Owen, because somehow Clive Owen keeps getting roles playing Americans, and he still hasn't mastered the accent. He does.
I love Clive Owen.
I adore Clive Owen, and it's literally the only thing I don't like about Clive Owen's work is that he can't do a fucking American accent, and he doesn't just hire a fucking speech coach. Like, I swear to God, there's one problem, and it's his R's. He's trying to compensate for the fact that R's are harder in American English than in British English, so he goes R. Like, he goes an R on, like, every R sound, and he just sounds stupid. It's so frustrating. Like, it's my only problem with the movie Sin City. I adore the movie Sin City. Clive Owen's narration in that film is, like, hire a fucking dialect coach. But...
See... He is hands down my favorite part of Sin City.
I love his character.
That's fine.
Accent hurts me. It hurts me. And my favorite part of Sin City is Hardigan going,
middle,
get up, old man. And, well, it's Marv. And Hardigan repeatedly going, get up, old man. Like, those are my two favorite parts of that. But returning to Elba.
It's funny that you brought that up originally about him, doing accents and can he play an American and stuff like that. Because the stuff that I'd seen, he wasn't specifically British, and I know that he is British, and I've seen lots of just speaking stuff with him, like interviews and other things. Like I know him a little bit as a person outside of being an actor in terms of like different things that I've seen. And, like, I needed to actually go back and watch something where he was specifically British in something. Just to be like, okay, like, and have that... I have the, like, the American, have the, like, Brit, have the, like, African and, like, interconnect. And,
yeah.
And that was really impressive for me. Just seeing the different notes.
And he really hits all of them.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you brought up earlier chameleon versus being yourself. And I'm definitely with you that much more on the chameleon side.
Yeah. Though he brings that steel always, and I think that's an element of him. And yeah, that was actually something, because he grew up in think it's north of England. I was looking up a bit of his bio, and he grew up in rural England, and so he has a heavy as fuck British accent, naturally. And just watching, the really, really tight work that he did on all of those. Beast of No Nation is great, because the whole film is done mostly in African languages.
Nice.
Various different African languages. But there's also chunks where they're speaking in English, because it is used as, a lingua franca. And...
the language of the oppressor.
Yeah, I know. I hate that it's a trade language is now a French language. It's literally the French language. Because it was the original lingua franca. But everything in it is designed to be the dialectical components of local English dialects in Africa, in that part of Africa. And they did a really, he does a fucking phenomenal job of all of it.
Nice.
Working the totally different language cadence that you have from that accent set, which is really fucking hard to do. And, he had some background with it, because both of his parents were African immigrants to the UK. I believe his mother was Ghanaian, and his father was Nigerian. I can't remember. I read that a few days ago. But yeah, just truly his dialect work is top notch.
So one film that I ended up watching that I didn't think I was going to have any interest in, and I know you watched it too, was Daddy's Little Girls.
Oh, yes!
And being interestingly surprised by how much I enjoyed it and how much it made me feel. And
yeah,
the notion that it's a Tyler Perry film, which is in direct contrast to like 90% of the stuff that you know of as being a Tyler Perry film.
Yeah.
Because it's not funny at all. Like, it deals with real shit.
I don't think there's a single bit of fucking comedic relief in the film. Like, yeah. And that was something that when I ended up seeing that in theaters.
Really?
Randomly. I didn't rewatch it. I was like looking at it and I was like, oh man, I should totally rewatch. I think I'm going to do other stuff because I didn't want to rewatch too many of the things that I'd already rewatched. And I was already going to rewatch Luther because I love Luther.
Right.
And I was like, I need to rewatch Thor because I haven't fucking watched Thor in years. But like it really is like a well-crafted, all of the characters are nuanced. Even Junkie Mom is super nuanced. And going into it, I was used to the kind of like broad comedy stuff that Tyler Perry does that I'm not a huge fan of.
Right.
But that movie was so tightly done. And it was funny because that was actually my first introduction to Idris Elba, and I didn't realize it at the time when I saw it because I had no other experience of the man. And so going back, I was like, holy shit. It was Idris Elba in that movie. Oh man, because I always thought, I was like, that dude did a great fucking job. He did a really wonderfully realistic job in that film. And goddamn, it wasn't Idris Elba. I've been a fan for years and I didn't even know. Like, long before Luther. I'd forgotten that one. I'd totally forgotten that one. That's a weird one too. Because it's like, again, it's not the kind of, it sounds like it's going to be such a weirdly generic
and like feel good movie, but it's not.
No.
Like everything is literally this man's life is shit.
Yeah.
And like him trying to like desperately like put the pieces together while literally everything is against him because he's on the wrong side of the law.
Yeah. And is a beautiful depiction of that. Like the whole point where it's like, how dare you, like you're a rapist, and he was like,
right, I can explain myself. Like, let me fucking just 2 seconds. Did you serve time for this? Like, were you guilty of it? Did you serve time? Yes. You work in law. You know fundamentally that people get wrongly convicted all the time.
Yeah.
You know that there are so many fucking circumstances with every fucking case.
Yep.
And that's what you ask? Like, I had problems with her character. I understood her character because of the background that she got, but like, she was the biggest problem I had with the film.
Well, she's frustrating. She's deeply frustrating. She's coming at it from a closed-minded point of view. Like, one particular background.
And it was one of those things that, like, I'm trying to look at it from that background and trying to, like, make realistic judgments on her character from what I've seen in terms of what would actually be, like, realistic for this character in the circumstance.
Yeah.
And I couldn't always come to, like, direct conclusions of, is this realistic for this character? And again, that's why I think she's my biggest problem.
Yeah.
Because I get it and I can buy into it, but it's a little bit more of a step for me to buy into her character and her
There are a couple
nuances.
bits that are a little bit thin. Like the point where she's like, after all of her experience of this guy and her knowledge of the way that the legal system screws people, that her immediate is like, oh, and like, go fuck yourself, and like, stops helping him. Whereas later when the actual conversation goes down and he's like...
Yeah, there's just like 2 180s that she does in the film.
Yeah.
And like, I don't feel like they're as justified as they should be.
No. I don't think
other
that they
than that,
are
like,
at
I
all.
love that film.
Yeah, no, like, which is actually really cool to hear, because I really liked that film, and it's one where, like, people will be like, what?
What are
like,
you telling me to watch?
Tyler Perry comes up as a joke, and I'll be like, I don't know, I like Daddy's Little Girls, and, like, everybody laughs, and I'm like, no, really, like, I actually think it's a good film, and then people get, like, real quiet, and they're like, and it's like, I mean, watch it. It's got quality.
Well, it's interesting, too, because you mentioned watching it in theaters, and, like, that movie's not that old. I mean, it came out in, like, 2007.
Yeah.
So, I don't even fucking remember it being in theaters. Like, some of the shit that I was watching, like, Gunman earlier, like, I remember the trailers for that coming out and everything. Yeah. And, yes, that's a much more recent... 2015 is more recent than 2007, like, yeah. Definitively. But I don't even remember Daddy's Girl, like, coming out at all.
I remember seeing a few posters for it and I think I saw like a trailer on late night TV because I used to just do the full Adult Swim every night and watched all kinds of weird shit. But honestly, the reason that I saw it, the only reason that I really saw it was that I went into the theater by myself because that used to be something I was really into. I'd go to the movies by myself. And I went in and I was looking at the thing and I was like, I don't know or give a fuck about any of these movies. Oh.
Did you roll a D8?
I saw that. I rolled a D fucking 10, thank you. Alright? Because I'm not a goddamn cretin and I learned my rules. I had this motherfucker yesterday online start giving me shit about liking D&D 3.5. Like, ooh, I'm not going to talk shit about you because you play in second, but you're going to talk shit about me because I'm playing 3.5? How? Ooh! Sorry. I got heated on that, and I had to walk away. Like, I had to walk away from my compuper for, like, 3 hours and come back and be like, okay.
I think if there's anything that people can learn from this podcast so far is that we like Idris Elba. We don't always like the films that he's in, but we like Idris Elba. Yes. And you give a fuck about TNT.
I mean, accurate. No, I just go in, and I was looking down the list of movies, and I was like, I don't know what any of the fuck these are, and I don't care about any of these, and I got to that one, and I was like, oh, I saw that ad that looked like an interesting concept. Sure. And I went and I watched it without, at that point, any real knowledge of what Tyler Perry's main body of work was. Just like my first introduction to the Wayans brothers was not what a lot of their body of work was before that point. My first introduction to them as, like, comedians was White Chicks, which I despised as a film. And I might have a different opinion now.
I think it's enjoyable, but it's certainly not great. Like, I would give that a solid D+.
Yeah. Whereas, like, they have, like, all of their old school, like, all the great old school shit color. They did. I haven't seen In Living Color.
You should watch them in Living Color.
But
it's interesting, too. I can't say for sure, but there's a lot of feel from In Living Color that I feel transition into Chappelle Show. Like Dave Chappelle watched In Living Color.
Word.
And it became, like, part of who he was and what he wanted to do when he had a comedy sketch show. Because there's the sketch vibe, there's, like, the intermingling of the, like, African and, like, hip-hop vibe. It's interesting.
Word.
And you should definitely watch them in Living Color. I'm down to watch them in Living Color with you.
Dude, I'd be down. I'm definitely down to check that out. You know, I think that there's a lot of puns there, but I'm too delirious to put any of them together.
When you watch In Living Color and you see, like, the intro sequence and everything, you'll be like, holy shit, how many fucking Waynes are there? Because it's a massive fucking family.
That's true.
Like, you know, we're familiar with the Wayans brothers, but
I knew there were more of them. I just knew that there were, like, the two famous ones, and that's actually just something funny that I have to jump off of, because it's been driving me crazy recently, because Chappelle just keeps coming out and being bitter as shit about Key and Peele being successful. And it's really been getting on my nerves. And, like, I haven't seen the new comedy special. I heard good things from some people. I heard really bad things from other people. But the fact that he just hasn't let this go with Key and Peele, like, he made a joke a couple of years ago about, like, oh, you know, Key and Peele have been, you know, like, you know, they should put me in the credits, you know, like, they're really just doing my thing. And then it was like, you know, how do you think I feel? I had to watch Key and Peele do my show for 5 years. And I was like, the reason you weren't doing your show was because you chose not to. You have no right to give anyone else crap for doing something in the genre. And no, I'm sorry, you didn't create the genre. Like, yes, you did establish a place for, like, really witty, really out there sketch comedy that plays on race relations. You did expand that field, and I give him mad props for it. And I love what I've seen of Chappelle's Show. I haven't seen enough of Chappelle's Show. I really need to see more of it. But he has no right to give crap to two people who are doing their totally own fucking thing years later, while he's still running out on his contract. Like, you serious, dude?
No, I haven't heard those things, and B, I don't like Key and Peele. But even given both of them, I'm totally with you that yes, you're the one that made that choice, so to be blaming somebody else is totally fucking stupid. Own up for your shit.
Yeah. Like, getting it together. And I just, like, that's been kind of the big thing, is that, like, since coming back, he seemed to have very little self-awareness about...
It's unfortunate.
...the world as a whole, and about himself. And that really sucks, because part of what was great before was his level of self-awareness. That's why even walking away with the $50 million was such a brilliant, honestly, a brilliant joke. Like, that was such a wonderful joke to go out on, was, I want you to give me a contract that's $50 million with no stipulations. And they said, done. And he said, thank you, sir. And he left the country. Like, how good of a joke is that? And then having him come back and be this crap, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating.
Well, I think something that's unfortunate, and I've heard about it happening with other comedians that they've talked about it, is becoming that one note thing, that whatever you did or whatever you've done, whatever you're famous for, becomes distilled to a one punch note. And whenever you're doing a show, literally having drunk people go, that one thing.
Yeah.
And I can see that bugging the crap out of him and leading down this path. And again, I think he's handled things really poorly, which is why we're at where we're at now. But at the same time, I understand part of what's led him down this route. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
Yeah. There's that bitterness and that frustration of, like, all you fucking people want is that joke that I made 10 years ago. Like...
Yeah, there's Patton Oswalt stand-up from a couple years back where he talked about doing a small stunt in Vegas. And it was a bunch of fucking drunk people that had all been gambling, and that was basically like, keep them here, make sure they have a good time, make sure they laugh, keep them drunk, keep them happy. And basically he got up to do a routine, and it was people, again, shouting things at him that he's done and shit like that. And he was like, yes, I was in that. Yes, great. And he said, whenever you see me doing comedy, know that that's out there for me, and I want to keep doing comedy because I don't want to fucking do that.
Yeah.
Like, that makes me way more money, but I don't want to fucking do that. I want to be somebody. I want to do something.
Instead of
just having that light into that region of the comedy world and what it can become.
Yeah. Well, and that I think is really important, and it is really important to keep pushing yourself in whatever your art style is. You have to continually try to expand beyond your bounds, and because otherwise you will simply become stale. And apparently that only works if you're AC/DC. Like, I can't think of anybody else who it works doing the exact same fucking thing for 45 years. Like,
not for 45 years. Slayer would be up there too.
Okay.
They produced some really great albums, the late 80s, early 90s, and they've been doing that for the last 20 years. The same fucking thing.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like you gotta push yourself, and that's why I am proud of Patton for always doing that. Like, he's always continued to push boundaries, and I feel that bringing it back to the primary focus of this podcast, I think that that's something that Elba does as well. Like, he's obviously somebody who isn't above taking, like, random, funky action work, like whatever it is, because like, he's working. But like, he's also someone who chooses, like, really challenging stuff, and is someone who I think will continue to do that. Like, and again, that's part of why I'd love to see him as Bond. Like, beyond even the first Black Bond thing or anything else.
Right.
Like, which I also think is great, because it cements that whole idea that the James Bond persona, the 007 number, go together. It is a totally new identity that the next person gets. And I've always liked that as a thematic thing for Bond, and especially giving it to Elba. There's so much potential depth there, and I think that he's going to be able to draw that out. But also, yeah, just as a sideline, I would definitely recommend watching his run on The Office, because it's just him crapping on everybody being stupid.
Going back to the Bond thing, I do have to say, like, I'm really down for it, and I want to see it. Yeah. But at the same time, I am a traditionalist in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And a purist, and I think that if there is source material on something, that the source material should be respected as much as possible.
I completely agree.
There's way too often that choices get made to PCify something or reach a larger audience, and it dilutes what the original material was. And I think that's really sad. And I'm not saying that would be the case with this run of Idris Elba as James Bond or 007, but that's something that's always in the back of my mind, and it frustrates me when I'm looking at specific films or specific TV shows or something that are trying to push boundaries, but they've lost the essence of what it originally was. And especially when it's something that I love, I'm like, you fuckers!
There's the elements of that, and it's the same. It's that same frustration of, like, whenever they cast like white actors as like Latino or Asian roles, it's that same thing of, it's like, why didn't you just do the fucking thing from the original?
Right.
Like, just have the person be that race.
Right.
For me, the big thing with those kinds of changes within film casting is that if the role, if the character traits of the role, the background of the character is predicated on a specific cultural background, a specific racial background, a specific set of experiences that belong to that one background, then you need to use someone from that background for the role, because otherwise it doesn't fucking work. But if there isn't that necessity within the character, I see no reason not to change it. I see no reason not to have a male character played, like, become a female character, or vice versa, or to change around races or do anything else like that. But there are those characters where it's like, okay, there's these intrinsic elements that I'm like, you can't, like, I wouldn't want an American playing Bond. Like, Elba works because he's not just a Brit, he's a Brit who spent a ton of time in Scotland, like, which is what Bond is, like, the character. Like, and I love that. It has all of those significant, like, all of those particular character ties even left intact. And Bond is not a character that I think is one who intrinsically needs those backgrounds as a part of him. It's nice when they bring it out, because I think it adds certain depths to the character that you don't get in a lot of the film interpretations, because God fucking knows that Roger Moore isn't Scottish at all.
No,
but, like,
shit.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Agreed. And that part of why I dislike his run. But that's, yeah, no, like, that's kind of where I feel that, because I totally get you. It's just like when you change the basic fabric of something truly important about the role by changing the cultural background, you are intrinsically changing the story. And I think that's something that that frustrates me.
No, and again, I have no problem with it. I would like to see, again, in this specific circumstance, but because it was tangentially related, I wanted to bring that up.
Oh, no,
because
absolutely.
that's something that pisses me off to no end. No, you want to fucking do the thing, then do the fucking thing! Like, don't
do
ruin
a different version of the thing. Well, and that's always been, I'm definitely on the, I'm on the more purist side of things for the most part if you're doing adaptations. I definitely think that you should hew as close to the original as possible. But I also, as time has progressed, I've become a lot more open to those kinds of artistic tweaks that go into it, which is why, again, I fall on that part of, like, it doesn't matter to me unless you are, like, really changing the fabric by altering the character. Which
Yeah. And there are some... there's the logistical impracticality of taking the source material, whatever it is, and diluting it down to, an hour and 30, 2 hours, whatever snapshot for theaters. Like, there are logistical problems in that.
Yeah.
So I realize that there are corners that need to be cut and changes that need to be made, and we've all seen movies where it's not a direct adaptation, but you're like, wow, they did that scene better.
Yeah.
So I'm not completely railing against it. I'm just saying it frustrates me specifically when the changes are made because I am such a purist. And again, if you cocken it up by making the changes, then there's a really...
Yeah, then go fuck yourself. And if the changes are good and support the story, then they're good and they support the story. And that's something that I've always been a big believer of.
Really what we're saying here is Idris Elba for James Bond and Chiwetel Ejiofor as the villain for Bond.
Oh shit! Oh, that'd be good. I hadn't even thought of that, dude. That's ooh. Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to see that duality going down because I love his work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! Sorry, my brain is now just spinning on 1,000 possibilities. That's really fucking cool.
But based on what I've seen, there would be an interesting level of interplay back and forth from the capabilities, and I think that pairing would work well. Yeah. I don't know that we'll see it because I don't know if we'll see Idris Elba as James Bond.
Yes.
That's the first hurdle that needs to be made.
Then
there needs to be a script, and then whoever's right for whatever villain's written for the script should be cast.
Absolutely. Though it would also be great to just see Idris Elba versus Anthony Hopkins. I've wanted to see Anthony Hopkins as a Bond villain for forever. And that'd be, I think, a great one. The prototypical, crazy billionaire who's going to destroy the world because of his crazy, weird, creepy eugenics thing.
Yeah, that would definitely be great, too.
I would love that.
Every time I see Anthony Hopkins in something, I love him because he's great, but also, he's getting up there now, too.
Yeah. And,
he's still got it, but, it's always one of those things that, whenever I'm projecting that I want to see him in a role or something, I'm like, fuck, that's gonna happen. It should happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, we don't got a lot of time.
One of these days.
It's like Ian McKellen and his whole, you sure you want me to do The Hobbit? I kind of don't want to do The Hobbit because I might die partway through The Hobbit, and is that really going to work? Which I appreciate.
The Hobbits, again.
Yeah.
That was almost something I got into on my tangential rant. You fucked it up.
Yeah.
You fucked it up.
A dark stain on human living is that film. And jumping back to, unfortunately, Thor, that was actually I think it's the only Anthony Hopkins performance that I don't care for. Because I don't think he did a bad job with what he was given. I think that he was literally given 3 saltine crackers on a paper plate.
I like him in that, but I think that's more projecting on my part, potentially, because of my love for Anthony Hopkins, A, and B, the character that he's playing. I think it's a natural fit, and yes, I think it could have been done a lot better. But I'm still appreciative for what it was, and the unfortunate nature of, again, the Thor movie, the first one, being so much of a setup for other shit in the MCU.
It's literally just set up for the Avengers. And we didn't even get to see the D&D party roll. The whole movie is about a D&D party that isn't actually doing a D&D session. And I was like, my balls, they are breaking. I just need to do a full parody version of The Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan with My Balls They Are A-Breakin'.
Excellent. But I think we're running a little bit long at this point. And we've strayed off a few times.
Yes, we have. We definitely have.
Not that I haven't enjoyed our journey.
Our tangential dives.
But do you have any closing thoughts on Idris Elba or any specific works that we haven't talked about that you want to?
Not offhand. Mainly the thing is, I didn't realize he was on The Wire, which is another double down reason for me to watch The Wire. And I am planning over the next several weeks to continue watching little bits of his back catalog because there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. Because it's half television
Right.
and then half film.
Right.
So there's just a shitload of stuff in both mediums that I really want to check out. So I'm going to be doing more of that, and I would encourage anyone listening, definitely, like, check out everything you can of Idris Elba's work. Like, man's fucking top notch. Top notch. He will look into your soul. And you? Any closing comments?
I got nothing.
Good night, everybody. Remember, tip your bartenders.